The movie begins on a cold, rainy night. A gas station attendant is cleaning the floor while listening to music, when a terrified woman named Nancy appears outside. Nancy knocks on the doors, begging for help. Instead of letting her in, the man turns off the open sign and pushes her away. She then runs to a nearby phone booth and calls the police, urgently explaining that her husband and son have been kidnapped. The call cuts off when the phone runs out of credit. Suddenly, the lights around the booth turn on, and the woman screams in panic. The man comes out of the shop and looks for her, heading to the phone booth, but finds only the concrete base where it stood. Confused, he turns back toward the station, only for the booth to reappear and fall back onto its base. An hour later, Officer Murphy arrives at the gas station and finds Nancy's wallet among the wreckage. He wonders where she is, then looks up at the sky. In another city, April finishes a call with her mother while packing for a weekend trip. She asks her boyfriend Kyle if he's sure he wants to come with her, and he says he's excited after a tough semester. A few minutes later, April video calls her father, who is shocked that her mother is letting her drive to the cabin to film it. He believes his ex-wife is trying to sell the house just to upset him, and he asks April to bring back some items from there. April makes a list, including a gun stored in the basement. Soon after, her friend Sif shows up at the door and asks why she's late. April didn't know that Kyle had invited Sif, his girlfriend Lex, and his childhood friend Melanie to join the cabin trip. While driving, Sif lights a flare inside the car and throws it out the window. Kyle tells him to stop, but Sif insists there's nothing to worry about since the road is empty. Shortly after, Officer Murphy pulls them over and warns them about dangerous behavior in the city, then lets them continue. At the cabin, April sees a "for sale" sign outside and looks inside with emotion. Melanie recalls the last time they were there, watching her dog, Rusty, run in the yard. They used to spend every summer there when April was a child. Later, April goes out to get her camera and refuses Kyle's help when he offers it, keeping her distance from him. Soon after, the group hangs out by the pool and experiments with dangerous substances. Meanwhile, Officer Murphy investigates a pig's carcass found near a local farm. The cuts on the body are clean and precise, with no signs of a wild animal attack. In his car, he stares at a photo of his wife, thinking about the strange events happening in the town. During a walk, April and Melanie take Rusty for a stroll. Melanie talks about April possibly moving to New York, while April expresses concerns about marriage and children with her childhood sweetheart. Suddenly, Rusty starts barking at the trees and runs toward an abandoned property covered in photos of April and Melanie. The girls sneak into an illegal farm inside the property. As they prepare to leave, a man wearing a gas mask appears, carrying an axe. At first, he thinks they are intruders. April removes his mask, revealing that he is Travis, a friend of her father. Inside his home, he shows them weapons and equipment from his time in Vietnam. He also presents a printed image of a comet-like object captured by thermal cameras, which he believes is actually a military aircraft. He then talks about government conspiracy theories and why he chose to live off the grid. At the cabin, Kyle privately proposes to April. She is shocked, especially since she was planning to tell him about a job offer in New York. She rejects him, and he leaves the room angry. Outside, their friends celebrate by popping champagne and throwing confetti. At the station, Officer Murphy reviews security footage and sees Nancy in the phone booth, but the video glitches for a few seconds before the booth disappears completely. Frame by frame, he notices the booth lifting into the air. On the cabin balcony, Kyle asks April why she rejected his proposal. She explains that she doesn't believe in marriage the way he does, due to how her parents' relationship ended. During their argument, a comet-like object flies over the cabin and crashes a few hundred meters away. Moments later, the group heads to the crash site. Kyle thinks it might be a plane, while Sif is confused by the strange red glow. As they approach, they discover a disc-shaped spacecraft. Kyle picks up a piece of debris and notices how light it is. Lex fell into a panic and ran back to the car, but she noticed footprints in the mud leading toward the trees. She warned the others. At the cabin, the group gathered in the living room during the storm. Lex wanted to leave immediately, and April agreed because the footprints were clearly leading toward the cabin. Kyle tried to calm everyone down, but the power suddenly went out, scaring them all. Kyle suggested checking the circuit breaker in the basement. In the lower floor, he tried to fix it, but was shocked when he touched a nail and a spark shot out. Then they heard Rusty barking upstairs. After a few seconds of silence, a loud noise startled the group. Rusty started barking again, and April grabbed her father's rifle. A disturbance came from upstairs, so they carefully moved out of the basement and found the front door wide open. Kyle locked it, and they began checking the rest of the house. While April was looking toward the balcony, Kyle saw a tall gray alien standing on the other side of the glass door. He saw the expression on April's face, and she quickly turned and opened fire. Outside the house, the group found black blood near the pool, and the alien was floating in the water. They immediately backed away from the cabin, but crashed into a large tree that had fallen across the road. Kyle and Sif got out of the car to investigate. Moments later, Kyle noticed that the rain had suddenly stopped. Sif returned to the car, then saw a wall of rain just a few meters away. He looked up and realized everything around them was covered in a strange red glow. He ran back to the car, but when Kyle started the engine, the car's electronics exploded. A few moments later, Lex stepped out of the vehicle. Instead of running, she stood completely still, staring at the source of the light in the sky. A spaceship appeared, shining a powerful beam directly onto her. Lex began to levitate for a few seconds before she was pulled up into the spacecraft. Her friends watched in horror as she disappeared. The group ran into the forest to save their lives. In another place, Officer Murphy was inspecting an abandoned campsite and found a video camera inside a trailer. He watched the last recording of Nancy, her husband Jeffrey, and their son Mateo. A glowing red object appeared in the sky, and a beam of light struck Mateo, lifting him off the ground. Suddenly, Murphy heard a noise coming from the bedroom and went to investigate. Inside, Nancy came out of a closet holding a baseball bat and tried to strike him, but she missed and hid in the corner, confused and shaken. She seemed disoriented and terrified, as if aliens had abducted Jeffrey and Mateo and performed experiments on them, leaving disturbing thoughts in Nancy's mind. The group arrived at Travis's house, and Sif showed them a video from the crash site while explaining everything. Soon after, Travis revealed a long-standing conspiracy theory. The government had made a deal with aliens since the Roswell incident, allowing them to abduct humans in exchange for leaving most of the population alone, as long as both sides did not interfere. Travis believed April broke the agreement when she shot the alien, and now the aliens were seeking revenge. Melanie interrupted when Travis's scanner detected an approaching spacecraft, but it suddenly disappeared from radar. They thought it had moved away, but Travis said it had actually landed. All electronics suddenly failed, and the power went out completely. Travis grabbed an automatic rifle and handed the group glow sticks, telling them to move immediately. The group ran while Travis stayed behind to defend the house. When he returned, he found a completely destroyed area around the farm, and a tall alien creature moving through the shadows. He hid and fired when it got close, but black blood began dripping onto his face from holes in the ceiling. He was convinced he had killed it, but the creature was actually crawling from under the table in the darkness. Suddenly, an alien hand with 4 fingers grabbed his head. At the camp, Nancy told Officer Murphy that he needed to help the others still inside the spacecraft. Inside the alien ship, the extraterrestrials had returned some of the people, but hundreds were still trapped inside, some of them for years. After that, Officer Murphy returned to his car and looked at a missing person poster showing his wife, wondering whether the aliens had abducted her as well. At the cabin, the group barricaded the house and closed the windows. A few minutes later, they heard a sound outside the front door. Sif looked through the keyhole but saw nothing. April looked as well, but still saw nothing, until the alien returned, and she found herself staring directly into its dark black eyes. She froze in fear. April stepped back and told them the alien was right outside the door. The doorknob began to turn from the outside. Sif grabbed a rifle and aimed at the door. Suddenly, the door opened, and Sif fired at a blinding light flooding the entrance. Officer Murphy and Officer Mitchell ordered the group to put their hands up. Murphy asked April why she had left the car on the side of the road, and she explained everything. Mitchell laughed at her story, but moments later April said she would show them the alien near the pool. Murphy ordered April and Kyle to come with him, while Mitchell stayed with Sif and Melanie. Melanie opened a bottle of pills and took one. Outside the house, the alien was no longer in the pool. Then they heard a loud crash coming from the garage, and Murphy told April and Kyle to return to the house immediately. Inside the garage, Murphy went upstairs and accidentally touched alien blood. He found Rusty lying on the ground, his stomach torn open and his intestines exposed. Suddenly, a fast-moving shadow passed by. Murphy fired, but the alien escaped through a window. Looking outside, he saw it moving between the trees. In the police car, Mitchell mocked Sif, who was handcuffed in the back seat. Murphy returned and told Mitchell that April and her friends were telling the truth. Mitchell saw Murphy's missing wife poster and ordered Sif to be relocated, referencing a 10-year investigation. Murphy began to suspect that what happened to his wife was the same thing that happened to Lex. Suddenly, Murphy turned on the headlights, and the alien appeared in front of the car. The alien invaded Murphy's mind, putting him into a trance, forcing him to shoot Mitchell in the stomach. Then he turned the weapon on himself and blew his own head off. Sif screamed in terror and tried to escape the car as blood splattered over him. After a while, April and Sif got out of the car and headed to the cabin. At the cabin, Sif explained how the alien was controlling minds. He suggested that Melanie and Kyle should join him in the city, but insisted that April stay behind because the aliens wanted her specifically. Kyle and Melanie refused to leave her, so Sif walked away alone. After he left, the cabin began to shake. A red light filled the room and a high-pitched sound caused intense dizziness. The three of them collapsed to the ground, covering their bleeding ears. When the sound stopped, the floor began to rise. They ran to the basement door. April and Melanie went inside, and Kyle locked the door behind them using shelves. Kyle tried to grab a knife from the kitchen but stopped when he saw the alien inside the cabin. He distracted it and ran to the bathroom, where April was hiding in the bathtub. Outside, Sif fired randomly into the forest until he ran out of bullets. Then the alien attacked him, tearing his clothes and scratching his body. A bright red light appeared above him. He grabbed onto a tree branch, but a white beam lifted him into the air. Only his arm remained hanging from the branch. In the basement, April remembered the happy times she had spent at the cabin as a child. She found an empty pill bottle and realized Melanie may have taken a large amount of sleeping pills. Melanie cried and apologized to April for ruining her life in order to avoid being abducted. In the bathroom, Kyle heard footsteps and jumped out of the tub, but saw no one. He looked in the mirror, and suddenly, an alien arm came out of it and grabbed him. In the basement, April realized the sounds coming from the spacecraft were getting closer. She came outside and saw the cabin destroyed. The power returned, and she found a diamond ring and a pool of blood on the ground, realizing the aliens had taken Kyle. She ran outside screaming at the spaceship, begging them to bring him back. She fired fireworks toward it while crying. Suddenly, a red light engulfed her, followed by a white beam that lifted her into the sky. On board the spaceship, April woke up trapped in a sticky black net. She broke free and walked toward the end of the corridor, where she saw a massive alien structure as ships flew outside. Elsewhere, Sif was strapped to a vertical table. An alien insect was implanted into his body. He screamed in pain as a laser burned his chest. Moments later, a rotating probe pierced his body, killing him. At the same time, April found Kyle and helped him escape the black net. She cried and apologized for rejecting his proposal. Kyle said it was okay, and they embraced. They noticed aliens watching them. One of them gestured, and a white light engulfed them. April and Kyle woke up in the middle of a forest. They were alive. They heard approaching vehicles and headed toward them, finding the military. April ran forward asking for help, but a soldier shot her in the stomach, and she fell to the ground. Kyle tried to stop them, but they shot him as well, and he fell beside her. Before dying, April gave Kyle her diamond ring, and they held hands as soldiers finished them off at close range. Later, a high-ranking officer spoke to a man in a black suit about the incident, explaining that the storm had caused the spacecraft crash and that casualties were minimal. At the crash site, soldiers collected debris while scientists kept a living alien inside a capsule. Elsewhere, April and Kyle's bodies were dumped into a pit and burned. And so the story ends, showing a brutal conflict between human cruelty and unseen forces. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to share your thoughts and subscribe to the channel.